everyone. Thank you all for joining. This is so exciting. I am an MBA 2026. I graduate next year. Um, and yeah, just a bit about me. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I was working in New York at Accenture before school, came back to school, worked at McKinsey Atlanta. This summer was nice to be back home. And I'm really excited to be one of the BBSA co-presidents this upcoming year. And yeah, just happy to meet you all virtually. And yeah, and I'll be helping moderate the panel today. We'll start with you, Dante.
Yeah, sure. So happy to kick us off. Hey, everyone. Good to be here. Glad to be back engaged with the Sloan community. It's always fun. So I'm Dante Montgomery. I was an LGO, Leaders for Global Operations graduate, class of 2020. I before Sloan was working in oil and gas space at ExxonMobil doing project management. Um, and yeah, came to the LGO program, which is the dual degree program with engineering. So I did my master's in mechanical engineering in addition to the MBA. Did an internship with private equity, and since graduating LGO, I joined Danaher's general manager development program. Spent about 2 years in product management, another 2 years in what we call global business enablement. It's more commercial operations. And now I'm the director of global footprint and supply chain strategy. So I've had a breadth of experiences in product management, commercial, and now more operations focused.
Hey everybody, my name is Elam Bajwe. I'm also excited to be back talking with the Sloan community and hearing from all of y'all and hearing your questions. Prior to Sloan, I worked in IT consulting and did accounting and finance. My background is in accounting. While at Sloan, I got to focus on product management and also entrepreneurship, amongst other things. And post Sloan, I started my own IT consulting business where I run the company and I'm also an IT product manager working on the Workday product. Pass it on to Karen.
Hey guys, it's so nice to be back with fellow Sloanies. I'm Karen. Before Sloan, I'm originally from Boston. Before Sloan, I was working in like the tech space, so tech and policy space, excuse me. So I was Harvard working at a think tank before that, worked as a campaign manager in New Hampshire. So definitely maybe not your traditional MBA candidate, but definitely took a lot of nuggets out of Sloan. Currently, I'm a project manager at Meta where I'm working on their content and integrity operations team. So basically, what I do is making sure you all, if you use any Meta apps, so Facebook, Instagram, Threads, WhatsApp, making sure you don't see certain types of harmful content. So that's kind of what my day today is about. And I will pass it to Emeka.
Thank you, Karen, and good afternoon and good evening all. So I'm Emeka Okpara. I'm a recent Sloan graduate as of 3 months ago, and it's good to be back with Sloanies and with people who have interest of Sloan. Prior to Sloan, I was a partner at a consulting firm doing work in the West African space, specifically Nigeria. And after Sloan, I've rejoined the firm, but now have a more of a continent-wide approach of moving the energy sector forward. And while at Sloan, I focused on sustainability as one of my focus areas, and it's what I'm doing now going forward. Back to you, Aria.
Cool. Okay, thanks everyone. And yeah, feel free to use the chat. And if you have any like person-specific questions as well, throw it in the chat. Okay, and just to kick us off, I want to start with community. So what ways were you involved in the community, and also like kind of what were your favorite parts of the community, and what did that look like for you in whatever way that means to you?
I'm happy
No
to
order, no order, whoever just wants to jump in.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. So when I was at Sloan, so my first year I was part of the Sloan Energy Club. I was a VP of community there, which also engaged in bringing together some of the not just MIT-wide community, but even collaborating with some of our peers, specifically at Harvard, in their energy group as well. So that was a lot of fun. And I was also one of the chairs within, or one of the panel chairs essentially for the Africa Innovate Conference. So that was my first year. In the second year, I became the co-president for BBSA, the Black Business Student Association, as well as one of the co-chairs for the Africa Innovate Conference. So those were my two kind of big community leadership engagements. But of course, we led, had a number of ways where we were engaging, not just through the clubs, but just more socially and interactive, on campus and around Boston. So it was always something going on and way to connect with fellow Sloanies.
Yeah, I'll hop in there. My experience at Sloan in terms of community and kind of what I did to start like the club level, similar to Dante. I was in several clubs. I was in the product management club, entrepreneurship club, and several other things. So that was one way to interact with people. A fun way to interact with people also is our WhatsApp groups. We had like giant WhatsApp groups, and we had a Black WhatsApp group called the Friendly Black Hotties, where we would constantly just be in communication with each other and plan like events with Harvard and with people at Sloan, including game nights, movie nights. Like just we did a roller rink night where we like all went out to the roller rink, and then also on top of that, just getting to know people with trips. The MBA experience is known for taking trips and stuff. And I took a lot of trips in business school. I think I visited like 20 something countries while I was in business school. And that was a cool way to get to know people as well. Like I did like a boys trip with like a lot of some of the Black men at Sloan. We went to London, and then the following year we went to Lisbon, and where there I got to really get to know people and know people a little deeper. My second year at Sloan, just to kind of loop it all back around, I'm also VP of communications, I guess, for BBSA as well. So we focus on like the social media strategy, and we also helped out with like the sweater sales and stuff like that. So there's a lot of fun ways to interact with people. It wasn't just in the classroom. You really got to know people deeply outside of the classroom. And even now, like some of the people I got to hang out with are still my friends today. We even took a trip to Phoenix earlier this year to celebrate, being friends for, I guess, now 4 years. It's kind of crazy.
When I met you, the first thing I remember you said you helped create the Kente sweatshirts.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, but in
Yeah.
I was just
Cool.
gonna say Ellen was integral in the Kente sweatshirts, and so if you guys have seen that, that was all Ellen. Okay, so in terms of community for me, I would say like I kind of base community off a lot of my personal values, and so like equity and inclusion was something that was really important to me. So I got involved with BBSA early on in my first year, and then my second year, I served as co-president. Mentorship was something that was really important to me. So my second year I served as gosh, what do you call it? Like a student like mentor, core mentor. So basically like leading orientation and having a cohort of first year students my second year that I kind of shepherded through their first year. And then also I just like love having fun and doing fun things. I'm from the Boston area, like I said. So my first year I was a CBC, which is called like a community building chair for my cohort, my ocean. And so that was really fun, like planning random events from like Valentine's Day events to Halloween events and parties and whatnot. So that was like also a way to really get to know my community within BBSA, but also just like the broader Sloan community. And then lastly, I think to Elam's point, I think I met friends as well and like built my community primarily outside of the classroom actually. So it was through like involvement in, CBC, BBSA, but then also just like randomly meeting people in a cafeteria or like a trip. And I feel like your random hangouts that you have like after class in someone's apartment, I feel like those relationships really last and stand the test of time. And so I have Sloanies that have become really good friends that have visited me now in my new city. I'm going to a Sloan wedding this weekend. So our community runs really deep. And I think that's something that's really maybe unique of Sloan than maybe other business schools is like we just really value each other and like each other for the most part and really have fun with one another.
Yeah, just to add in there, I think for me it was more, first of all, the Sloan Fellows program goes by really fast. A year is a really short time. So I think getting involved with the clubs was something that a lot of us struggled with just because of timing. But I was involved with the Energy Club, the African Business Club. But I think for me, I focused on it from informal point of view. So every week, my roommate and I had Sloanies over for dinner. So we would cook and like have a chance to break bread with classmates, just talk about things that you ordinarily wouldn't talk about in class, and also just have a chance to reflect and get to know each other. So I think from that perspective, it gave me people that I'm still friends with now. I'm in Dallas for the weekend, and in a few hours, I'll be meeting up with two other Sloanies as a way to keep that community going. So it's a very important value at Sloan.
I love that. I love all that. Something you touched on, Karen. Yeah, the Sloan cafeteria is notorious for just meeting people all the time. Um, and I love that. Okay, so this next question is, what surprised you when you got to Sloan? Um, Good, bad, all of it. What surprised you? Um, yeah, in general, or about the culture at Sloan?
All right, I'll go first. So I'll start with the good, and I think this will answer a question someone had about the stigma of not being team oriented school, which I have never heard, and I'm on like the subreddit all the time. But anyway, like I think from my experience, like the NBA subreddit, from my experience, like I think it was actually the helpfulness from other people and the willingness for people to help you, not just when it came to like in the classroom stuff. Like for example, your first semester you have to take a class called DMD, and if you don't know how to code anything, it's really difficult. And I'm a person with an accounting background and that never touched that stuff. But there was like one of my good friends now, Tyler, he was willing to just drop everything and teach me, and not only teach me, but teach other people how to do how to code in Python, how to understand kind of the work you were doing. And I think that kind of spread, that was kind of pervasive. I ultimately ended up being able to help other people with the accounting work. We got to take accounting as a core class, and I was actually able to grab a classroom and answer the questions that people had and teach them the basics and foundations of accounting. On top of that, you have your core teams and stuff like that. So I think the good was really the Sloanies helping Sloanies wasn't just like some corny mantra that's put on, things just to sell a message. I think it was something that was actually true and something real. I think one of the things that was maybe difficult you have this like kind of choice paralysis, right? Like because there's so many things going on at Sloan, and because some people are in the NBA and they come in and know exactly what they want to do. Other people like myself had a vision of what I wanted to do, but after like learning more, I kind of wanted to switch. And you do run into this kind of scenario where you're like trying to figure out the best thing to do, and you ultimately might end up trying several different things. And even though the NBA full-time program is only 2 years, it's only 2 years. So like if you don't focus on something like sooner than later, then it might come back to bite you in terms of like applying for internships or getting whatever role you want full time. So I think that's probably one of the tougher things for business school. I know that's something that's probably pervasive amongst all business schools, but I think that was just something those are a few things that kind of highlighted my experience in the good and the bad.
Yeah, maybe one thing I'll add to that was a surprise for me was just how like socially active and like really personable the community was. And it's not to say that I was expecting it to not be that way. I just think it was so much further kind of on the far end of the spectrum of being very sociable, very personable, and in a very good way where like your classmates are really trying to get to know you for who you are. They're not trying to one up you or anything like that. It's really really trying to build that community at a very deeper level, not just at a surface level. I think that was something that I was like very pleasantly surprised by, and it really, I think, really made my experience there just one I'll never forget. Maybe just to keep it balanced of something that was a surprise that wasn't so positive, I would say, is that so I was very engaged in like the broader MIT community. So it wasn't just at Sloan, but there's a lot of schools that are very good at what they do, and sometimes things can be a bit fragmented. But with that said, if the people who excel at really pushing the boundaries and have a mission, have a goal of what they're trying to achieve, you'll find that there's more than enough resources, not just at Sloan, but even at other departments across MIT that may not be well advertised or well known, but it's those resources are there. It's just not always, front and center for you to grasp. So that was maybe one thing that's, has its pros and cons, but it was certainly a surprise when I got there.
All right, so I'll start with the bad for me. I think the bad is just a matter of the disconnectivity with Sloan, with parts of Sloan and the rest of MIT, because you take classes, like for instance, I took a class in the engineering building, and I just felt that the synergy amongst among the two schools wasn't quite fused, and the Sloan time doesn't exist in normal MIT. So you're running around trying to get there on time, and trying to be a proper student. And then I also think that MIT is so broad that a lot of us at Sloan stay at Sloan. We don't get a chance to really explore the proper MIT community. So I think that's also one thing that we've got to do a better job of. But I think the good is I was super surprised the first semester of just the quality of the professors we had. We had really fantastic professors who understood and who taught things that were quite complex in very easy to understand language. And also we're willing to help, for you to email, stop by, grab a coffee and all of that. So I think for me, I was very, very so surprised at that. And then the fact that they're so qualified and so smart, they still had time to help you in some difficult topics. So that'll be it for me.
Honestly,
Oh, go ahead, Arya.
I would just say my favorite thing about Sloan is Sloan time.
Yes, I wish meetings at Meta started as Sloan time. So I would say that I think for me, I think the bad was, well, it wasn't a bad thing. I think just for me personally, I found it really to be intellectually rigorous and challenging. I didn't come from like a science background or accounting or engineering or whatnot. Like I am a liberal arts girly through and through. And so classes like DMD and some of the other classes were a little bit challenging for me, like accounting and whatnot. But I think what I really appreciated about the community was that all my classmates were always willing to like pull up their sleeves and like just help me, whether it was like prepping for an exam or like an assignment. And usually in your cohort, or what do we call, wow, I'm forgetting all the Sloan terms.
Oceans?
In our oceans, but then what are our little
The
clusters of 7?
Core teams.
Core teams, thank you.
yeah.
In our core teams, like usually someone brings some level of expertise in your kind of core class topics. And so those individuals were always super willing to like sit down and like mentor you through the classes, which I really supported, which I really appreciated. So I think everyone is just, it is like a truly collaborative community, and everyone genuinely wants everyone to succeed. And I don't think you can always say that about all types of communities, but I always felt that at Sloan. And it wasn't just from my classmates, but it was also like your professors as well, who were willing to schedule time outside of office hours, who, if they knew you were interested in something, would like send you like resources or articles or whatnot. And so I just like appreciated the community and supporting me when sometimes I felt like I was drowning.
No, thanks, guys. And a few people, or there's a couple questions that came up, and I'll kind of just combine them. First part is, how do you balance? There's a big thing about balancing with all the clubs and everything. How do you balance that with academics? And also in general, is there anything that you had to do differently from your prior studies to now, or to when you were in your MIT studies?
I think I can kick it off. I think you just have to learn how to prioritize. Like, There will be a million things. Like it feels like you're drinking from a fire hose sometimes. There are just so many assignments, fun activities you want to do. You want to go on all the trips, but you just like have to prioritize like what's really important to you and like have a North Star. And sometimes that might change. Like I think I went into business school thinking I was going to be in consulting and that just like didn't happen. But like being able to pivot and like move from that, I think is really important. And as you're pivoting, bringing people along with you, whether it's like your colleagues or like switching what clubs you're potentially interested in. So yeah, I think prioritization was something that was like really important for me. And your first year, first semester, you'll try and do it all, and then you'll kind of get burnt out, and then you'll learn how to prioritize second semester. So yeah, stop there.
Hmm. And yeah, the second part to the question was like, just in general, is there anything that you have to do differently in previous studies versus MIT studies? But I think you touched on that too, Karen, just to
Yeah,
clarify.
Yeah, I think for me, like a lot of it was new, to be quite honest. So I had to build up, but that's why I applied to business school, and that's why I wanted to come to business school, was to learn a lot of new skills. So I think for me it was just like learning how to think differently, maybe tweaking like my policy brain to a more business focus and strategy lens. But that was something that I really appreciated and was able to learn and adapt from learning from my classmates and professors as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say one big change is the internship aspect, right? Like if you're doing a full-time MBA, you're gonna have basically that first semester, you've got to work on prioritizing, like Karen said, social, not just socializing and your coursework and your grades and stuff, but also getting that internship that you want to get. If you want to go work at like a Microsoft and Meta, wherever, like they usually recruit right. Basically, recruiting starts right when you start school. So it's a lot of balancing. It's a lot of balancing. It's also working with six or seven new people you've never met before who are from other parts of the world who may have different working styles, and you've got to quickly learn how to work with one another in your core team. And you really do get this experience of FOMO where you're like, okay, I want to do all this stuff. Plus, I want to go on all these trips. So I would say like prioritizing and making sure you get all those things kind of squared away right away, and make sure that you focus on the things that you're here to do at business school, right? So if that means you're there to pivot and get a new job somewhere else, then I would say focus on getting your internship right from the jump from business school. And there are other people who are also, everybody's also going through the same thing for the most part, right? So like there's an understanding that everyone has where they know, hey, I'm gonna be recruiting for NVIDIA right now, so I might be slacking on my accounting work. So can y'all pick up the slack, and then so forth and so on. It's a balancing act. I forgot the other part of the question, but that's like the difference in my studies between what I did undergrad, which is accounting, and master's in undergrad in accounting, and what I did in business school. But what was the other part? Sorry.
No, I think that answers. It was like one
Okay.
part, one question was about how do you balance everything, and one part is like how is basically like your previous studies different than this, and
Cool.
I honestly a huge part of that is balance. So it's kind of
Yeah.
just like that helps. Thanks.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to say no to things. Like because you want to do everything, like you're gonna want to try to do everything. Say no to some things. You won't miss out on everything, I promise. Like it's 2-year program if you're doing full time. It's a 1-year program if you're doing like any other program, right? Like or LGOs, like even longer. Like you'll have time to do everything, or you'll have time to do the things that you really want to do if you really focus on that. But don't try to do it.
Yeah, I did want to add, maybe just from like an LGO perspective as well. So LGOs start the summer before the Sloanies come on. So we kind of get a little bit of a head start in the sense of, adjusting to being back in graduate school. And that whole summer is more kind of engineering and like math and statistics focused. So it's typically more kind of academically rigorous. So we kind of come into the fall and are already kind of in that frame of mind. Additionally, one of the so LGOs do typically take one extra class and over what the MBAs take, and that extra class usually an engineering course that it's with your traditional engineering students, right? So you do have a little bit of an extra course load. On the flip side of that, in the fall, we're not typically recruiting for an internship because our internships are done through the program itself. if anybody wants to talk more about how that all works, I'm happy to have like separate conversations. So feel free to reach out. But essentially, we're not recruiting for the typical MBA internships. It's all done through the LGO program. So it's much lower pressure in the fall for LGOs to again continue to find that balance and get involved in a number of other things because you're not recruiting as heavily for those internships. But at the same time, there's like lots of like the coursework is pretty challenging for LGO, particularly with the engineering courses. But it's again just finding the balance and being intentional about your time and how you're spending it was one thing that I had to learn through that fall semester because I was definitely trying to do everything and realized I'm not Superman, but it comes through trial and error. There's no kind of magic formula to it.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, Dante, I think you can't do everything, right? It's just practically impossible to. So you have to be very intentional and be very strategic about what you can and can't do. One of my mentors before business school told me, figure out what you want to do in business school, write it down, and reflect on it almost on a weekly basis to ensure you're chasing your North Star because there's so many options at Sloan. You show up and the finance bros are talking about um, ETAs, you got product management people, you've got consulting. So there's so many options. If you don't have a North Star, you'll end up with a fancy degree from MIT, great school, right? But without a lot of real substance, then you have to go back and relearn some things, and no one wants to do that. So really have a North Star and stay focused on it.
Cool. Thanks. Okay. And now to move into kind of just like being, I guess, a Black person at MIT. I guess one person asked if anyone has done anything in terms of like entrepreneurship and like kind of what that's looked like, if you ever face, and maybe broaden it, face any situations with less resources, and maybe just in general, kind of like any reflections on your time at being, the Black experience at Sloan and what that's looked like for you. So 2 parts, academic, what that looks like for you, and just your own personal experience in the Sloan community.
Yeah, I can go first. I think for me, I walked into orientation and the Sloan Fellows class is about 103 people for my class. I walked in, sat down, looked around. There were 2 Black people in the room. And in my mind, I'm like, what is happening here? Like, this is not what it should be. Thankfully, a few people showed up afterwards. It ended up being 6 Black people as opposed to 2. So that's a huge improvement, but it was still significantly less than the rest of the class. The good thing about Sloan is you'll have, in my class, we had 44 countries represented. So there's so many people from all over the world in your class. And the potential racial stereotypes that the typical Americans could have are not there because you have people who haven't lived those experiences and you're able to meet people from day one and really establish who you are and being able to show up and do the work and also be caring is very important. But I think I didn't after the orientation bit, I didn't feel that it was anything negative being Black at Stone. I felt pretty at home because all the resources were there in student life and the admissions office, the programs office. So I think being Black wasn't a problem, but I think when I showed up, it was a bit of a shock. But once things started, it wasn't an issue that I had to contend with.
Yeah, I'm happy to give some comments about my experience. I mean, my whole life I was pretty much in a very diverse community of multiple, however any way you want to think about that. But it was always, I'd say the Black part of the like population was never more than like 10% of, whatever environment I was in. So it was kind of coming into an environment where I was already comfortable and knew, but the Black community is always, very close knit and, very supportive of each other and always finding ways to make sure we're connecting with each other and empowering each other and making sure we're all moving forward in, the world that we live in, which, obviously doesn't look like us in our communities or in our, the Black community. So it was always a positive experience for me, and especially at Sloan, with not just the Black community, but also being able to share our experiences with our peers as well. And like, what does it mean from our perspectives to be, Black in the business world, the challenges that we faced, and really having those open dialogues with our peers. So there's like plenty of space to be able to have those conversations, which I found very rewarding and very, very empowering at the same time. And one of the things that we did when I was on campus, we call them C functions, which is basically an opportunity for different cultures to kind of share their experiences through food, through music, through dance, through, whatever, lens of culture you want to look at it through. And we started I think we call it the Black America C function, which was like either the first or second time that it had been done at Sloan. And it's actually shared across the whole MIT community. So it's not just a Sloan specific thing, but Sloan leads it, but the rest of MIT is welcome to join. And so it was just great feeling comfortable that we can kind of push this out to our peers and kind of share what our experiences are like, what it's like to kind of have our culture. There's also an Africa C function, which I think had already been established before as well. So yeah, just say all that to say that the experience was never anything negative from what I experienced. It's always kind of positive things as I reflect on my experience being Black at MIT.
Thanks, Dante. I'll add, I know especially this year with affirmative action and everything, like things have looked very different. In my class specifically, I describe us as small but mighty, and I love everyone. And we had we went to Martha's Vineyard last year, and we're really close. And also to echo your point, there's so many people over the world. It's just like everyone feels a little bit new, and everyone has been extremely open to getting to know one another. And I don't know if you guys feel the same, but like that's been my experience. And to your point about that, we've had a few like ask me anythings. We had I guess a Black at Sloan ask me anything this past semester, and a lot of people came just to hear about what the Black experience was like, and like just things from our perspective. And like other affinity clubs have them as well. So like things like that are like things that I really, really enjoy.
Okay, I think we heard you. I 100% agree with your point, Arya. And I think the thing I would add too is just like, I don't feel like being at Sloan, I was ever marginalized because of the color of my skin, like I think there was a question around like resources or whatnot. I personally have never, um, personally, that hasn't been my experience. I do think it's like Sloan really tries hard to be like an inclusive community. And obviously, like everyone's their own individual person. Everybody comes with their own individual biases and whatnot. But I do think like as a school community, like everyone really tries to show up and support one another. And so I have found it to be like a really inclusive community, and my friend groups range from within the Black community to even outside of that. And so yeah, I enjoyed being a Black person at Sloan, but I know that's not everyone's experience, but for me, I personally really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and just to wrap it, I mean, like I would say the Black experience for us, and like I already mentioned, obviously the affirmative action case changed everything. Like our class had 31 Black Sloanies. I know that number's been cut significantly, right? And so I would say like the experience that I had was wonderful in the sense of, not only did we as a group get to know one another at Sloan. But then we also expanded that, right? Like Harvard's right down the road, and like the Black Harvard students were like there too, and we would do like game nights and kickbacks with them to like actually get to know one another, and we would hang on campus. I think when it came to the Black experience at Sloan, of course there were some like head scratching moments, or someone would ask a question in class, where you'd just be like, okay, and you'd have to kind of correct them or like kind of call that out, but it was never from a place of like malice. It was just more like they didn't know, and it's one of those opportunities where like business school is a place where you're supposed to get to learn from other people, right? And so in a low stakes environment, and so it was nice to be able to like have that conversation with some people and be like, okay, I can see where you're trying to go with this, but like realistically that's not how, like, you should see it from this perspective as well, right? Like it shouldn't just be from this lens that you're seeing. And to Karen's point, like I don't think I ever felt like an other. Like there was never a point where I was like, I'm a Black person at Sloan, and that was like I never felt that way. It was more just like I'm a person at Sloan who happens to be Black, right? Like I really felt it was an inclusive environment and a place where you could not just feel it from like the students, but from the faculty too. Like there would be cases where like we would do case studies. It's a lot of how we learned at Sloan, right? And there was some case studies around race where we were like, I think it was I can't remember the class, the core semester class where we had to like um,
OP,
but OP, thank you. There's an OP case where everyone was just like,
organizational processes. Sorry.
yeah, thank you. There's a case where we're just like sitting there like, okay, this is kind of nonsense, and there'd be like chatter in the group chat about all that stuff, and then we'd also bring it up in class and like call it out. So like I think there was opportunities, to expand your horizons. A lot of the stuff, like I said, I wanted to learn from other cultures too. I got to learn more about like the Saudi Arabian culture, Japanese culture, amongst other things, by like getting to know our classmates and stuff. But I didn't ever feel like I was like how I felt when I worked in the business world sometimes, where it's like you're the only Black person and people realize you're the only Black person and treat you like that. Like I didn't necessarily get that feeling. So I would say ultimately overall it was positive. Of course, there's some bumps in the road on certain aspects, but for the most part, it was perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, and let me know if you can't hear me, but just to add on to that, it is so nice having so many schools in Boston because we have had kind of just Black students in Boston meetups, and that's been a lot of fun. And I also feel like at Sloan, and to Elam's point, the corporate world can sometimes be not be so pretty, but everyone at Sloan, they approach things with curiosity. And I think that's been my favorite part of getting to meet a subset of people who don't, for the most part, aren't judging initially or are truly just curious. Um, yeah. And then next question, um, to make it more fun, what is one of your favorite experiences at Sloan?
I'll give one that is very uniquely LGO. As part of the LGO program, we do like a global, not global, but a domestic plant trek. Sorry, I had to remember what it was called. It's been a while. So we do a domestic plant trek where we go visit a number of different partner companies over the course of a 2 week span. And that's in the first January of, so basically halfway through the first semester, or sorry, through your first year. Um, so yeah, we're on planes and buses literally almost every day for 2 weeks, visiting 12 or so different partner companies as part of our kind of immersion experiences, getting to visit different plants, different operations, and also engaging with other LGO alumni who are typically leaders at these facilities as well. And so the opportunity to kind of travel around with kind of my LGO peers during those 2 weeks, like we really got really close together, got to know each other very well, to this point where I still refer to them as family at this point, because we've had so many very close experiences with each other. And then one of the nights that we were there, I was actually one of two people that decided we should do essentially an LGO Ask Me Anything, because we actually had, for once, a little bit of downtime in our evening, and then I have to go to like a networking event of sorts. And that Ask Me Anything session, I think we held it like in the basement of the hotel we were staying in. and lasted probably 3 hours long of us just kind of just talking about anything and everything under the sun. It was very just eye-opening, kind of revealing some of the kind of deep experiences that some of us had, that others didn't really know about. So to me, that's like an experience that I'll never forget, is kind of that 2 week trek, and especially that night in particular where we really got to open up and share who we really are and what makes us unique and how we think about the world and all that good stuff.
Yeah, can I cheat and give you two? They were back to back. So like I think one experience that I really okay, one experience I really valued was actually the Saudi Arabia trek. So this was like something that one of our classmates happened to be related to the Crown Prince. And so he hooked us up with like a 10-day trek where we got to go to Saudi, we got to actually go to Riyadh, go to Jeddah, go to Al Ula, and then also visit Saudi Aramco. And I think it was one of those things where like I'd always read about Saudi Arabia, and this isn't some plug for Saudi Arabia or endorsement, but like it was more just like an experience that I don't think I would have ever gotten to have, if not for Sloan. And then I think after that, and also getting to know our classmates like on a way deeper level while there, like the people who were there, and just like having like random conversations with people who I'd seen in the cafeteria but never really talked to, and got to know their story and got to understand kind of who they are and what kind of makes them. And I'd say another thing was one of my favorite experiences at Sloan was G Lab, which is the Global Entrepreneurship Lab, and it's a class where you get to during the semester you get to work with a company that's international. My company was based actually out of Nigeria, but they operated in Ghana, and we're planning on expanding to Togo and Benin, and so we got to work with them directly on their strategy and their expansion strategy. And then not only that, but because Sloan is all about experiential learning, we actually got to go to Ghana, Togo, and Benin, and over like a month's period, I think it was like 3 weeks, we got to go and actually go on the ground in Togo and Benin and speak to people on the ground and understand their stories and like help this company not only expand globally but also to understand like how their markets are different. And I think that was one of those things where it's like I'll never it's an experience that I'll never leave my mind, because not only was I working with 4 other people who I got to know really well, but also getting to hear the stories of people from Togo and using Google Translate, because I don't speak French, and Togo and Benin are French speaking countries, and but still hearing their stories and hearing the why behind the things that they do. I think that was just an incredible experience and something that I really value and something I take with me on a daily basis.
Yeah, so mine are two trips. I think as Elon mentioned, MBA is all about going on trips and going on track. So I got a chance to take a trip with my classmates just to take them to the continent. So we went to Nigeria and we also went to Ghana. And that trip for me was kind of a life changer for me, because it really gave me a chance to see Nigeria from my classmates' eyes and Ghana as well. And that really opened up my eyes to some of being from there, there's a lot of things you take for granted, but just having your classmates there and the fact that they can literally ask you anything was great, because it now got us to get to know each other at a much deeper level. I'm so very in touch with all of my classmates that we went on that trek with. That was a really good experience. And I think the other one would be at the end of Sloan, you get to take a trip down to the British Virgin Islands, the BVI trip. That was an amazing experience, because you're done with school and you're now about to face real life and properly graduate. But it's kind of a pause in that, because you get a chance to really just relax and really enjoy yourself and savor the moment of being done with school, but also knowing that you're connecting with people that you're going to be friends with for the rest of your life. So I think for me, that experience was really good at the end. Karen?
Yeah, I would say G Lab as well was one of my favorite experiences. I lived in Kenya with four amazing classmates that we are still like such good friends. And I don't know when else I'll get to live in a country for a month and work on a really unique project. And then also, I would just say, like, I know there's a lot of emphasis on trips, but also just like the small like dinners that I would have in my apartment or like the kickbacks with the Harvard community. Like I just feel like the small things also were what was really fun. And I don't think there are like opportunities unless you're planning it out like 3 months in advance with friends now that you can just be like, hey, come over and like let's have dinner and like watch Love Island. I wish I had that now to be able to like chill with my Sloan friends and like just do the little things. And so like definitely like index on that as well, because I know the trips get really, really expensive. But also do the trips because I miss that as well. But yeah, the little things matter as well.
Can you guys hear me?
It like cut
Yeah.
out. And now I can hear you.
Okay. Really quick, we have about like 5 minutes left and we have two more questions. First, whoever wants to respond, but how has Sloan impacted your leadership capabilities?
I can go. I would say now, I like started at Meta a few months ago and I work with really like high performing people. And I think something that Sloan really helped me to do is that like one, being able to like communicate really well, thinking about like the strategic picture of things and being able to break that down. I think also just like being confident to like speak in a meeting. You don't realize like sometimes in like your strategy classes with Don Saul, when you're cold called, you're like sweating in your seat, but those are like moments that really, I think, prepare you for like your professional career. So I think those are like skills that are like really important as a leader. And then I also think like most importantly is like being able to work with people. And so I work with like a variety of different like cross-functional stakeholders. And I think Sloan really set me up really well in working with a variety of different people from all cultures. And usually most classes, you know, you're given a problem to work on in a small group. And I feel like that's a simulation to like what my real life is now on a day-to-day basis is I'm working on really complex problems with like a variety of people from all over the world. And so I feel like Sloan really set me up to really think strategically about things, even like the little things of like, how do you like create documents and meeting notes and whatnot? I think like those are all like really important skills that you don't realize you're building in the classroom, but are really important for your future work.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm in my current role, which is like very much like operations, like global operations strategy. Like I support about 10 different manufacturing sites and some of my key stakeholders, there's like four different general managers, four different VPs of operations, as well as kind of in my function, I have my own management and their own priorities. So there's lots of different stakeholders, all of whom are much more well paid than I am and have a much more opinionated on what things should and shouldn't be done. And oftentimes they don't see eye to eye on different things. So it's organizational processes is one of the classes that I'm like leveraging all the time of
Yeah,
how do I
exactly.
navigate through all of these big stakeholders, none of whom I have any responsibility over, to try and get us all on the same page and understanding who cares about what and how can I get certain people to be on my team so that they can influence somebody else. And all of those kind of chess games is something that I really learned at Sloan. And I'm leveraging literally every day in my current role.
For sure. OP continues to be brought up. Um, with our last couple minutes, if any of you guys could touch on any tips for Black applicants right now, how they should approach this loan application and
So
highlight their community, their involvement and just like who they
yeah, I was gonna say like first and foremost, be authentically you. Like I think one thing that, you know, and maybe Terrell can speak to this better than I can because obviously I don't work for Sloan, but like you know, in my application, and in my video interview, the video you have to do, like be yourself in the video. Like talk about the things that you care about and things that matter to you, and don't be afraid to hide any of that, right? Like I know the current environments is what it is, but like I still think Sloan is looking for people who are really, are themselves, authentically themselves, and who have a mission to, impact the world in a positive way. I think another thing when it comes to the application processes, don't only touch on, what you want to do at Sloan, but like get granular. Like talk about the specifics you want to do at Sloan, right? Like do you want to if you want to become a product manager, what does that look like? Which classes do you want to take? Which professors do you want to hear from? What experiences do you want to have in order to make that happen, and marry how you are today, what Sloan will give you, and then marry that to where you want to go in the future. So like I said, be authentically you. If you're a Black person, don't be afraid to be a Black person in the application. You don't have to fit some box that checks every box that looks like some other applicant. Just be yourself, because ultimately I think that's what Sloan's looking for, and they want you for you. And I think that was something that I kind of struggled with in the application process, but ultimately came to realize that, as after I got, while I was there and after I graduated. So that'd be the advice I'd give Black Sloanies or Black applicants.
Yeah, and I think for me, it would be around and ensuring that you tell your full story. A lot of people kind of hold things back because they don't want to put it out there. It's not your that makes your entire story makes you who you are. So go out there, put things out there that could be uncomfortable, but go ahead and explain how everything kind of joins up. And I think finally you have to kind of show why Sloan is important to you and how it's going to bridge a gap to where you're trying to get to. So if you say, hey, I work in finance and I want to get into consulting, that's great, but why do you want to get into consulting? Paint that picture and ensure that as the story ties together. A lot of the people that I've talked to who want to go to business school, they're not quite able to tie the story together. And my advice is wait and ensure the story ties together, because even if they let you in, you don't know why you're there. You're just going to go there and you'll be more frustrated than anything else. So ensure that you have that North Star, and then also ensure that you know that you in your application you show why the Sloan degree is very important to get into your North Star.